Hello, welcome to the October beginning scrapbooking class. My name is Megan Jax. I am coming to you from out in the Seattle, Washington area. And I also have with me on this class Tessa Chappell. She's out in Indianapolis, and she's going to join us for the second part of the class. The first part, I'm going to be walking you through the Q4 project recipe from Creative Memories. And this is a beginner project recipe, meaning it's pretty simple to put together. We're just going to use our basic straight trimmer. You want to have your photos. You're going to need 3 pieces of paper and your trimmer. And if you have any other like embellishments, stickers or whatnot, you'll want to have those as well. And I'll walk you through putting that together, kind of just pretty much how Creative Memories outlined it for us. And then Tessa in the second half is going to use the same project recipe, but she's going to show you how adding in different tools, maybe making a couple of different cuts, will get you a different look. So you can see that you can go very basic and straightforward, or you can start adding in those additional tools and have, make it a little bit more fancy. So I had a thought and I did. That's what it was. With the beginning classes, we do like to give a little bit more background information or basic information regarding the tools. So before we go too much further, I wanted to even just mention what a project recipe is, because I know there's sometimes people like, what is a project recipe? So project recipes are from Creative Memories, and it is basically a handout or how-to guide with a cut guide on the back if you print it two-sided. This shows you how to make a layout. So Creative Memories puts these out, the beginner ones once a quarter. They put out new ones for our different collections 1 to 2 times a month, depending on how many new collections they release. They're a lot of fun to do. You can use them with any set of papers. So don't think if you see one for the Christmas collection that you have to only use the Christmas paper with it. You can certainly turn around and use it with any paper that you want to. So I'm going to switch over here to my overhead camera and we will go ahead and get started. All right, so I have my printed project recipe. You should have had an email with that. If you're catching this later on YouTube, we will have a link within the video description that will take you to our website where we will have this project recipe available for you to print. You can download it and then print it, or save it if you don't prefer to print it, but you'll have access to it. So here you can see we have a 2-page layout. 2 pages, obviously has, a left side and a right side. It has a total of 6 photos between the 2 pages. We have 4 horizontal, 1 vertical, and 1 square. These are always just kind of recommendations. You can make adjustments as you need to for your photos. I do have photos that I printed that fit this configuration. So I'm going to be going just with this general configuration. But once we get it put together, before we put the photos on, you will see you kind of have just a general background that you're ready to add photos to, however it works best for you. So there is a sketch. And a sketch is a black and white interpretation of the layout. And they generally have measurements listed on here. This sketch, since it's attached to a project recipe, will list pieces A, B, C, and D, and so forth. And those correspond to pieces on the back where they give us the measurements, or the second page of the project recipe where they do tell us how to cut the paper. So what's nice about this is I could easily come over here to my sketch and I could use a pen or a pencil and I could write in the measurements on this sketch. So I could see that there is these bars, A, B, C, and D are all 12 inches wide by 1 inches tall. And this rectangle, E and F, are 6 wide by 8 inches tall. And the reason I wanted to point out the ability to do that is because while in this beginner project, we are cutting 1 piece of paper to get all of those decorative components, you could easily mix and match those sizes from other pieces of paper. So if you can't get 1 piece of paper to give you all of these pieces, maybe your front and your back don't coordinate the way you want them to, really all you need are 4 1 by 12 inch strips of paper and 2 8 by 6 large rectangles. So that's what's nice about just writing those numbers on the front. And then what we have is more of what we consider a traditional sketch, which has those measurements listed with all of the components of the sketch. So your photos have their measurements, and then the sketch pieces would also have their measurements. And you're going to see that more in a traditional, like the virtual crop sketches, or if you did happen to order this week and receive the birthday gift that has all the sketches inside of it, they have all those measurements listed on those individual pieces of the sketch. Okay. So that was a very long explanation, but hopefully helps you, especially if you like the sketch, but you want to mix and match your pieces a little bit. Okay, so here in the sketch, the color version, I can see they've used two different pieces of background paper, and then they have one piece of paper that they're coming in, that plaid pattern on the top and the bottom. That is the 1 by 12-inch pieces, and this gray portion that has on the sides, that is the reverse side of the plaid paper. So those are the pieces that we see. We want pieces that are going to come across the top and the bottom. And then we're going to want to have the pieces that'll make those rectangles. I have my photos, and they're just 4 by 6 photos that are just from Memorial Day weekend, when we were up at our place that's up. We have a small, tiny trailer cabin-y thing in the woods. So I've got a mix of playing in the pool, doing s'mores, riding bikes, and my husband cleaning all the debris off the roof. So I am going to be using the C's Please collection. And I wanted to have tonal backgrounds. Now, when I say tonal, let me give you a quick rundown of what we mean by a tonal paper. A tonal paper is something like this brown paper. It's got a tone to it. There's not a lot of contrast. It is very subtle in its pattern. Whereas we can have a statement print or a statement page. Statement print is going to be more like this plaid paper that's on the reverse side of the wood. This, you can see we've got a lot more going on. We've got a stronger pattern. We've got multiple colors that are not within the same tone. We got browns, blues, and creams. So it's really making more of a statement. In this particular project recipe, they want us to use tonal papers as our background. So I have got some options here. I think I'm actually going to be using the brown paper as my background. So I've got 2 sheets of the brown wood tone. I am choosing to use the same. The reason I'm using the same is I just kind of prefer that look. You could mix and match 2 different tonal pieces here as your background, but I'm going to stick just with one color. And now I need to have a piece of paper where I maybe have more of that statement print. It doesn't have to be a statement print. They do have a statement print here with that plaid that comes across the top and the bottom. The reverse side to it has more of a subtle tonal pattern to it. It's just that kind of that beigey gray. I am actually going to be using this piece of paper out of the C's Please collection. I am going to use this kind of a stripy ombre color, and I'm going to be cutting my strips this way, so I will have a little bit of detail to those strips. And then the opposite side is just a wave pattern. So that's the piece I'm going to be cutting for my my project here. Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to look through. If you don't have tonal paper, you could use cardstock. The component that we use when we cut our paper, we really do want to have a double-sided piece of paper where we have 2 sides to choose from. If your sides do not work for you, you can come back to, and like I said, you can just print, you can cut all of these pieces out of separate sheets of paper. Really, all we need to end up with it are the 4 1-inch tall 12-inch strips, and we need those 2 rectangles that are 8 by 6. Okay, now it's time to start cutting. I'm going to put my background paper to the side. I don't have to cut anything on that. This is my designer strip or piece of paper, And I want to go ahead and I'm going to use my straight trimmer to cut it. In the email that we sent out, there should be a video. You included that video link, correct, Tessa? She's nodding her head that yes. There would be a video link in there that would tell you, where I walk you through some of the basics about the basic features of the 12-inch trimmer. I have got my straight blade in here, keeping it very much how they tell us to put it together. They want us to go ahead and we're going to cut 4 1-inch strips. Now, the nice thing about our trimmer is our cut line is the right side, or excuse me, the left side dashed edge of our cutting mat. So on the cutting mat, you can see we've got two. We've got a left dash and a right dash. We're going to cut on the left dash. We have measurements that go out here, out to 1 3/4 inch to the right side of the trimmer. And then we have all of our long measurements plus that arm that comes out here to the left. I am right-handed. I like to be able to hold the bulk of my paper with my left hand and cut. So when I cut this, I'm going to actually use the right-sided 1-inch line. And remember, I want to get those stripes. So I need to rotate my paper so that I am cutting perpendicular to those stripes. So I can see all of those colors in that 1-inch strip. I'll come over here to the 1-inch. I do like to, for some reason, I prefer to hold my paper towards the bottom edge of my trimmer. You might be holding your paper towards the top. I prefer the bottom. It's personal preference. And then I generally start my cut at the top of the paper and come down. I think that might be because I do hold my paper down here. If you're holding your paper up at the top, you might find that coming up from the bottom is easier. But I'll line that up. Once again, it's always good to measure twice, cut once. I'm double checking that I'm here at 1 inch. We're going to use this entire sheet of paper. So 1 inch and trim. I need 4 of those pieces. So I'm going to repeat that. There's cut number 2, 3, and here's going to be my 4th one. Now I've got those 4 strips of paper. Next, I need to go ahead and rotate this piece of paper 90 degrees. And I actually am going to flip this over because this is the side that is going to show up. So here, I need to come out here to 6 inches. 6 inches right here. I do want to point out the 6 is just to the side of the actual 6-inch line, where all the other numbers are directly below them. 6 is just to the side. I will admit, when I first got the trimmer, I made some cuts erroneously because I was going to actually 6 1/8 because I couldn't pay attention. What I ended up doing was taking a lighter color Sharpie and highlighting that 6-inch line just to remind myself that I need to line up to the line, not to the number. So 6 inches and go ahead and trim. So there we have all of the pieces that we need. We have our 1-inch bars. And then here you can see we got those 6 by 8 inch, what are invariably going to become really chunky mats on our page. Now it's going to be time for assembly. I mean, it's really a quick cut to be able to get those pieces all together. So we're going to come back to our pieces of paper here. I am going to grab my 13 by 13 inch mat. And I'm going to see if I can find my second one. I see it. It's under, oh, and it's got so much stuff on it. I'm going to have to just use one. I have a tendency to put all my product on there, lift it up and move it over out of the way. I probably need more of the 13 by 13 mats. If you don't have the 13 by 13 mat, it is a nice essential piece for scrapbooking. A great thing about it is when you put your 12 by 12 piece of paper on here, you can still see all of those measurements all the way around it. So it's super easy to be able to line pieces up. You will see how that works in just a minute. Now, before I get going, I do like to dry fit my photos. I like to make sure that I have all the pieces before I just start assembling. So when I do that, what I call a dry fit is basically I am just putting the pieces on the paper and not using any adhesive. And this is going to allow me to just, well, first of all, do I want to go from dark to light? I have these dark pieces here. Do they look best on the outside? I know I want them on the outside, so they look like that. The option that I could do though is I could flip my pieces. And what that allows me to do is have a little bit more contrast out here. I don't know. I'll tell you, I'm thinking I'm going to do that, and I'm going to show you why. I think I'll do them like this. I have pictures of Cody's my son, playing in the pool. There's a picture of him eating a s'more, but I have pictures of him playing in the pool. And what the pool pictures I know are going to be in the middle. By keeping my lighter colors to the outside, I'm actually spreading that aqua color evenly throughout my layout. I can have contrast here so that this piece of paper really stands out. I'm going to put all these pictures in place. Let's see, this one is going to go here. So that's in general how my photos are going to work on this page. They actually would have a little bit of separation between the photos and the top edge of things. But if you can see what I could do, because I'm just dry fitting, I could actually switch things around and maybe I will like it better. Do we have a preference? You can see how it's pushed all that aqua right here to the middle. The lighter aqua. I've got my here, here, and here, and my darker, blues are to the outside. Versus swapping it around and a little bit more even distribution of that color. In general, it can be nice when you're doing things like that. If you have that flexibility, I think I'm going to go this. I think I just like that. It's almost like it contrasts that the middle has the light color, or the center portion has the lighter colors in the middle that work their way to darker on the outside. And my, at the top here, they just kind of move to the darker in there. So I think that's the route I'm going to go. So now that I've got that figured out, I can go ahead and put my pieces on. The first thing I need to do is I need to put these bars at the top and the bottom. I'm going to use my cutting mat. I want to take the time to line up my 12-inch paper on my cutting mat. And do they give us 1/2 inch from the top and the bottom is what they tell us. That is, and they don't number the steps, but I see it says place the 1 by 12-inch strip across both pages 1/2 inch from the top and bottom edges. Easy enough. I'm going to use my adhesive. I'm going to use regular adhesive here. You could use repositionable. Repositionable is great when you have really fine detail things, or you want to have a little bit more flexibility if you need to move things around a little bit. I am pretty confident with where I'm going to put everything, so I'm going to go ahead and use regular permanent adhesive. The repositionable adhesive does, for the most part, turn permanent. I do use it a lot. But it's not quite as sticky immediately as the regular tape runner is. So here you can see I am able to use my cutting mat to line up that 1/2 inch. It makes it really easy to get that right across both sides. Just as long as you've taken the time to make sure your paper is on your cutting mat evenly. So there's the first strip. We'll put the bottom strip on. When using the adhesive, you just need small bits of it. I like to keep my finger on the wheel. There's this little wheel right there. I like to keep my finger on that. It helps, can act as a brake. You don't need to press down really hard on your, on the adhesive. You don't need to put a lot of downward pressure on it. I'm going to line my paper back up, and I'll go ahead and put this piece across the top at 1/2 inch from the top. This 6 by 8 inch piece is going to be centered between the top and the bottom. So I'm actually going to be 2 inches from the bottom and 2 inches down from the top. So I'll go ahead and just put some adhesive. I just realized I easily could have just kept that same side because of the way this paper was set up. It would have been well, I couldn't have because the opposite side would be all messed up. But anyway, I'm still going to just use the darker side. Just using small bits of that adhesive. I think the general rule is when you're putting a 4 by 6 inch 4 by 6 inch photo on, you only need you know, you need less than an inch or just right around an inch worth of adhesive, about a 1/4 inch of adhesive in each 4 corners. I use a little bit more on these larger pieces. I can go ahead and attach my photos now. I'm going to mix things up just a little bit. This photo, my son is jumping down into the water, so I'm actually going to put it up here. Then it shows them riding their bicycles off into the, riding their bicycles still onto the page, if you can imagine, and he's jumping down into the layout rather than being here at the bottom and like jumping off the page. A little bit of adhesive in the 4 corners. I'm going to line up my photo with the bottom edge of this mat, that 6 by 8 inch piece. If your photos are curled, I printed these photos this morning at home, so there's really no curl to my paper. Sometimes if you get them, if you have them printed somewhere, they'll have a little bit of a curl to it. You might find you have a little bit of a bow that direction. Every once in a while, they'll be bowed ever so slightly that way. I think it's just how they come out of the printer. What you can do is you can just use a little bit of adhesive right in the middle, and that helps keep it down. So that's an option there. If I don't have that bow to the photo, I don't really feel the need to put a piece of adhesive in the middle. It's only when I've got that little bit of a bow to the photo itself. All right, I've got this page done. I'm going to come back. I'll come back to putting the photos on over here in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and assemble the other page. Flipping my adhesive and just putting that adhesive on the back side. Need to line up my paper. Half an inch there, come over, 1/2 inch down from the top. We're going to just mirror what's on the opposite page. Cannot wait to see what Tessa does to make this look a little bit more, I don't want to say more exciting because I really like the direction this one is going, but it is very simple. I mean, it's really showing you the power of just simple can work. Simple as a page done. So even if you are a more experienced scrapbooker, don't be scared to give these beginner layouts a try, because there's some gems in these beginner ones and they can just be reused over and over and over again. I am centering this 6 by 8 piece. It's 2 inches from the top, 2 inches from the bottom. And then I will go ahead and put these photos on. So now I've got my two pieces, my two pages ready to go. This photo I know is going to come over here on this side. And this photo, I have it printed as a 4x6. They have it as a square photo here, and then dropping it down and putting in a little bit more of a title area they have an embellishment cluster, which would be just a mix of 3 to 5 or how many ever pieces of stickers or other embellishments that you wanted to include there would be more for like a title. I think what I am going to do is I will probably come in, square this off so it'll drop down, and I'll have room up here at the top to put a title in. My title is, I know what I want it to say. It's going to take using a combination of stickers and probably my cutting machine to be able to do some die cut letters. I have a manual crank Cuttlebug that I use letter dies with. It's going to say, what was it going to say? Pines and pools, chores and s'mores, or s'mores and chores, something like that, because, it was basically our weekend. We spent it in the pines. We had at the pool, doing some chores, enjoying some s'mores. So getting a little bit cutesy with the title there, because that's pretty much how Memorial Day weekend 2023 was spent. So I will go ahead. I'm going to cut this down to a 4x4. And I use the personal trimmer. This is Creative Memories personal trimmer. I have an older one, so it's blue. The current one we have is kind of that white color. It works the same way. It's a guillotine style trimmer as compared to our rotary trimmer. And to cut this down to a 4x4, what I'm going to do is you can, if you have a ruler and you want to double check, where is 4 inches on this? Am I going to be able to get from his head down to his elbow? I don't think I can. I'm going to have to cut off part of his elbow to do that. So I'm okay with that. I'm actually going to leave plenty of room at the top. So I think I'm just going to come in here and cut this at 4 inches. So I can find the 4 on my trimmer, and I'll give that a trim. Now, sometimes I will tell you, if I have a little bit of a wacky way of trimming my photos, I probably don't use the most concise process. Tessa's much more deliberate with how she does hers. I have a tendency, because if I can't make up my mind, I'm going to cut this actually at 4 1/4. And then I look at it again. And I determine, do I want to cut more at the top or more at the bottom? And I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm probably going to cut a little bit of both. And I can see Tessa's over there just rolling her eyes at me. I know she is. Because she and I have this debate all the time. I love this trimmer because I can make those little tiny cuts. She uses an older trimmer that we have to cut her photos because she just loves the way it cuts. So I'm going to cut 1/8 of an inch there, flip it around, and come in at that 4-inch mark. And there. I like how that looks. So I inevitably end up with all these little slivers of paper, but I just love the guillotine style trimmer for the photos. Our rotary trimmer is not really made to cut photos. They do recommend that you use more the personal trimmer style, the personal trimmer, because that guillotine just handles any kind of the paper, the photo paper a lot better. So there we go. We've got pools and pines, s'mores and chores, and I will get these pieces put on. I am going to tell you, I think I'm going to cheat a little bit. I think I was going to bring in a little bit of green, and I'm going to add a matte to these photos that are on the opposite sides. So that's a little bit of an addition from the original project recipe. They show they do not have mats. You do not have to use mats. I probably could get away with not using a mat, but I wanted to bring in a little bit of that green. So I'm going to cut some mats. That's probably my biggest deviation that I'm going to do from this whole thing. And yeah, I'll cut some mats. Tessa, are you doing anything like that with yours?
Probably not mats. I don't know yet.
Probably not mats.
Maybe
okay. I'm just going to show you really quick how I cut my mats, only because I'm just going to use a second piece of paper here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my paper to 4 1/4 inch wide, because both of my papers actually, I'm going to cut it to 4 3/16 or 4 3/8, which is a little bit bigger than a 1/4 of an inch because I don't want a full, I just like that size of mat. It's not a full 1/4 inch all the way around. It's a little bit narrower, but not that tiny 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this paper to 4 3/8 inches wide. I'm going to rotate the paper to the side. I'll cut it again at 4 3/8 because I've got a 4 by 4 square. You could do these at 4 1/4. You could do them at 4 1/2. I like the 3/8 because that's kind of like me being, you know, the too hot, too cold, just right. There's that little bit of green in there. This one here, I'm going to come out. It's already 4 3/8 inch wide, which fits my 4-inch wide photo, but my photo here is 6 inches tall. So I'll come out here to 6 3/8. And I'll just add that matte, that little pop of color, bringing in the green. It's hard to see on camera, but I really like it. I'll probably be able to bring in a little bit more of the green in some other areas, maybe up here over with the title or so forth, but just bringing in that additional color. So I'm going to finish up the tiny little details that I have to do. Probably work on those while Tessa's showing you her version. So we'll go ahead and if you have any questions, please type those in chat. I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, I'm going to pass you over to Tessa and she can show you what she's got going on in her layout.
Hello, everybody. Trying to think, what can you see? Are you on my face?
Yes, I'm on your face right now. Okay. Do you want me to go to your desk?
No, we're good. Let's make sure I was actually talking in the camera or not. So how are you guys doing? I know most of you actually. Is anyone on here actually new? I know some people sign up and then watch the recording. If you are brand new, put it in the chat. It's always a challenge for Meg and I to talk slower and more basic. We both move very quickly. So it's definitely an exercise. I've had a little bit more time to wake up today. It's afternoon for me, but Megan's early. It says it's the morning. I'm not sure I would be able to think that slowly, but I'm going to flip down to my table. So I have some pictures that I had printed. This is from actually last summer. Megan and I met at Creative Minds, which was a Creative Memories convention in Minneapolis. And we had a little bit of time to walk around and look at the river and the architecture and all of that. And so I have those pictures printed. So I decided to pull them out. Choosing paper is often one of the most popular questions people ask. How do you choose paper? And for this project recipe in particular, most of the beginner ones, they have you using both sides of the paper, like Megan pointed out. And so I was flipping through the packs that I'm using, which are old packs, Time Worn Textures, Memoirs and Memories, and looking for textures that would work together. A lot of them have similarity on both sides, but I wanted to find some contrast because I am going to see both sides on the layout. So I chose this paper. It has a little bit of this herringbone type pattern on one side, a dark charcoal on the other. So how did I pull this together? I need some base papers. Like Megan, I usually like my base papers to match unless I'm really intentionally going somewhere different in the design. And so I went through to find this paper out of the stone paper pack that has kind of that color scheme of texture that will be able to pull in the colors from both sides of my layout. We're going to make the same cuts with the paper, and then we're going to talk about an alternative way to use those strips. So I do have my 12-inch trimmer. Like Megan, I have a little bit of direction. I know that when I want to cut this paper on this side, the side you guys can't see very well, I know I want to cut across this pattern. The back side, while it would matter, either way would work for my design. If you have a side of the paper that you really are concerned about, it's always best to cut it up so that you know you're cutting in the direction that you want. I'm going to go ahead and cut my 4 1-inch strips. One option in this step I'm not choosing to do today, but if you have the decorative blades that go with our trimmer, this is an easy place to add a little bit of interest or texture. Our trimmer is nice because all those extra blades store on the bottom. And now I have to cut my 6-inch sheet, 6-inch, 2 6-inch cuts out of the 8-inch sheet. I have the same pieces. I don't remember if she showed you the bottom of the trimmer, but we have a variety of mats, I can't use my words today, a variety of blades, decorative blades to store at the bottom. Megan did a poll one time to ask people if they stored them all up. Do you like fill the top or do you fill the side and then go down? I can't remember what the results were, but we keep wondering when we're going to get some more blades to fill in those extra spots, but we don't have them yet. So I have the same pieces as Megan, but what can I do to take this layout a little bit extra? These 1-inch strips would be great pieces for border. So we're going to talk about 3 ways you could use these 1-inch strips to build a border. You will need to have an extra sheet of paper or some coordinating cardstock. I pulled out 2 sheets. I have a darker and a lighter. I chose a charcoal and a light gray, or you might be able to find a piece of paper that also has the similar tones that you want to use. So what are 3 ways that we can build our border? I'm going to show you pages I actually already had made for this strip. This was a set. I think I did it in Power Hour a while ago, but I used the Sunshine Arches border maker cartridge. So I wanted to pull that into the layouts. I used different papers on this layout, but you can see where the textures come in from this pack. So I'm going to pull out my Sunshine Arches. I know that for these strips, I want to show this light side, this light print. And so I need to choose a border base that's going to contrast or be darker or something that's going to allow these strips to show up. And so I'm going to go with the charcoal cardstock. So if you're building your own border at home, you get to this point in a project and you're like, how do I do it? Measurements are always one of the highly requested features of any layout. How do you figure out your measurement? So if I have a 1-inch strip, most of our border maker cartridges are giving you about a 1-inch design. And so if I want to map my 1-inch strip on this and I have about a 1-inch design, how big of a paper do I need to cut to be able to layer those together? You can probably go about 2 1/4, 2 1/2. You want to give yourself a little bit of a buffer to layer. You can always cut a little bit off if you need to. I think it's probably about 2 1/4, but for the sake of giving us a little bit of buffer, I'll cut a 2 1/2-inch strip. So I got us ahead of myself. I could go ahead and punch, but I'm going to go ahead and cut the 2 1/2 inches and show you both ways. So on the border maker system, there's a full video tutorial in a video that Megan did that we have in the handout in the email. It has this nice magnetic strip. And so if you have at least about 2 1/2 inches, it's going to hold your base paper down with a magnet. You're going to hold back that little housing piece. Now, Sunshine Arches is what we call an edger style cartridge. It means it's going to punch along the edge of the paper and it's going to stay on the edge of the paper. Some of them do make quite a bit of a mess. If you happen to have a strip of paper, maybe it's not holding very well, you need to make it a little bit bigger. The Post-it note technique is a very popular option. If you have a piece of paper you need to make longer to sit in the border maker system, you can use a Post-it note, ideally just one of them. And you could put that in there and stick it in there and the Post-it note will hold it. If you need to have a skinnier strip of paper, then you have to hold under there to punch. So here's my 2.5 inches. If I want to use this as a border paste, you can see I have plenty of room. I easily could have gone down to 2.25 like I thought. If I did do 2.25, I probably would have had to use Post-it notes. So I can trim it, I could leave it and see how it goes. So we'll leave that and see if we want to trim more. What are some other options for building a border? You have a 1-inch strip here, so you could go through your punches and find maybe a laser border, or you could punch out a chain style. So what's a chain style? A chain style border maker cartridge is one that punches clean. So here I pre-cut one from our gears. This is an older one for gears. Our timeless tweed. This is a fun time for those of you that have border maker cartridges to go through and see what you have, because they all do punch about 1 inch. All of them should nicely layer on top of that 1-inch strip that you have. So we have some options there, or you can find your border stickers, or you could just leave it so that the design shows. Another option, if you don't want to use the border maker system, is to use the 12-inch decorative trim. Maybe you just want to have a nice swell edge to your border. We have 2 options on here. Mine is blue. Our current version is white. It all works the same. They all take the same, whether you have yellow blades or blue blades. Maybe you're just coming back on Creative Memories and yours looks like mine. Maybe you're newer and it looks white and has blue blades. I can choose an edge, but again, remember, I just want a 1-inch strip. So how do I know how wide to cut it? Sometimes you can just kind of eyeball it. I want maybe a little bit of a the 12-inch decorative trimmer isn't always as easy to measure when you're out here. I have my paper hanging off a little bit. You could always flip it around the other way. I'm probably safe choosing about, I have the 1 inch, I need a little bit of buffer, so maybe like 1.5 or so. Maybe 1.25 if you want it. So I'm looking up here at this 1.25. When you do cut with a decorative trimmer, it has all these tiny little boxes underneath your grid. You're going to center it. You're going to go one up from the bottom, one down from the top. And you could use something like that as a border base. So trial and error, I probably should have cut that a little wider because I didn't take into account the dip and the swell. So do it again if you're like me, especially if you're new, or maybe you're not so new. I push that back, so I got to take into account for the dip, which goes below my cutting line, right? I have this cut line up here, but when I look here on the trimmer, it's pushed this way. So I really need to measure about 1.25 from the little peak of this. So I can count the boxes too. It'd be 6 would be 1.25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I need to line my paper up way back here. So this is true, whether you're new in scrapbooking or whether you're years of experience, trial and error sometimes. Megan and I do a lot of trial and error. And we get ready for classes, you guys are all like, oh, I love it. And like, we spent some time behind the scenes figuring those out too. So I could have something like this with the border, and I could also, I'll be able to flip it when I put my pictures. I could put it downward and have this straight edge. The third option I want to show you, if you are new with the border maker system, it does come with one called the picket fence. If you buy the standard colored one, everyone will get a picket fence. It's not this color blue anymore, it's gray. It is an edge style, meaning it's going to punch, and it's going to stay on the paper. But you would be able to cut an edge strip and cut it off. So what could you do with this 1-inch strip if we don't want to layer it, is we could weave it. So I want you to make a note of this, especially if you're new at the border maker system, is A 5/8 of an inch is what you use to weave in the border maker system. So I've already cut my 1-inch strips, but if you're going back to use this layout, you could just cut 5/8 of an inch strips instead of the 1-inch strips. You could punch something with your picket fence. You can cut this to whatever width you want. And then this 5/8 strip will weave through in this picket fence. And you can also add this as your border. You can weave every other every other picket, what do you call that? You can skip them. You know, you could skip to go down. You know, back up, kind of create your own pattern with it. So if you want to do something like this, before you ever cut the 1-inch strips, you want to make a note that you want to cut them at 5/8. The weaving can take a couple of minutes. It's a little bit more time consuming of a border, but it does create a fun effect. I won't make you watch me weave all of it. So we'll go down here, we'll have a real long weave. Pull the rest of this through. If you are new to weaving, it's easier to practice with cardstock. It's a little thicker. You can weave paper like the paper I'm using. It does take a little bit more effort to kind of weave it because you can't push it. It's not quite as firm. So if I'd weave all of it, this is what that would look like. Okay, so how do I layer this together? What are my options when I actually put the page together? So like Meggan, I have 4x6 photos. I have my base papers. I'm going to dry fit like she does. I'm going to lay everything out before I glue anything together because I'd have to choose which one of these options would I want to go with if I did it. On the back side of the paper I cut, it is dark. And flip that over. My pictures where I think I want them. I only had one vertical photo for these, and so I thought this would be a good spot. If you're lacking a vertical or horizontal, you can always sub in a spot with a journaling mat or a title bar. They show you a little one up there. I was going to use the big one. I just pulled this out of my mats, out of, I think, Archivers mats to put right there. So I can flush these all together. One option too, Meggan almost did it on her layout, but she was trying so hard to follow it exactly, but hers would have looked really nice too. Instead of that 1/2 inch from the bottom or the top, just push that 1-inch strip all the way up against the bottom of your photo and paper. That gives you a nice cohesive look. It's going to make it look like it actually is more of one piece in the middle. So that would be an option. Very easy switch. Or I can look at my borders here. So if I use the picket fence border, I also would want to flush that against my photo. So I could do something like that on the top or on the bottom. I have my sunshine arches over here. And if I did that one, I would probably layer in a border or a border sticker, laser border, or I could do something down here with the swells. If I want to do the swells, I would scoot that all the way down. If you don't want to go through and trim your paper, you can always just layer on top of it. That's really 4 options. The first one is just to flush your 1-inch strip against the bottom of your paper and your mats. You could use your picket fence, cut your strips at 5/8, use some additional cardstock and weave it through. It gives you a nice little picket edge. You can choose an edge style, cut it to about 2.5, 2 1/4. Layer that 1-inch strip on top of it, either leave it for the pattern to show or layer on a border sticker or a laser border. Or you could pull out your decorative trimmer, cut a little bit of a swell edge, layer your 1-inch strip on top. to give you a little bit of extra accent there at the bottom. So some easy options to take the layout a little bit farther, play with your tools as you start to collect them, and kind of go above and beyond with the project recipe as is. I like to leave my photos if I don't have to mat them. It's an extra step I don't want to. You incorporate the green in here. I could decide I could leave this matted on the dark. I think it looks fine. I could also pull in that light gray cardstock if I wanted to give a mat, especially if I use this over here as my journaling box. It is light, so I could just cut a easy mat out of the light gray. It was a 4.5 by 6.5 is the size of the journaling box. I told her I wasn't sure if I was going to do a mat, but I want to create a little bit of balance with that light color, and this would allow me to do that. Someone that signed up did ask the question, usually in our classes, we are wallpapering, we're using base papers. Most of the project recipe kits do that. They don't want to assume what type of album you're using, that you're actually using pages. If you do create a page like this that we consider wallpaper and you're not using the top loading sleeves, you can just adhere this onto your page. I mean, keep going through your book. I've done that many times. I've switched to top loading more now because of class. We go so out of order, it just makes sense. But this album that I'm doing for this trip will be on pages. Like I showed you, because sometimes some layouts you might want to piece together. When I pieced together this, I would have had to put all of these pieces on a paper, but I went ahead and just put it on a page. So you can definitely mix and match depending on your style of scrapbooking. So any questions kind of about these different options? Basically, you can build a border out of your 1-inch strip and take the beginner layout into more of an intermediate or advanced option. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Which one do you like better? I think this looks a little busy up here. I told you I was leaning towards using the sunshine arches because that is what is on the other pages also. But even the subtlety of the little bit of a swell is fun. We were down by the water. If I did do the picket, I would choose a consistent weave pattern for up there. I don't know, what do you guys think? Any votes on it? Are all good? Well, we look forward to seeing what you do in your beginner layout. So if you do complete the layouts, you're welcome to post them in our scrapbooking ideas and inspiration group with the hashtag scrap basics. I'll put that in the email when we send this out. So we'll send out the recording tomorrow with a handout once again. We will both finish our layouts and post them in the group. And then all of this will go onto a blog post for easy reference for you. I'll outline the 3 options for building a border with your 1-inch strip, so that you can tuck this idea away and use it again with your future layout. So any questions at all or comments? Or smaller group are always a little bit quieter. Coming up next is Power Hour, which is next Tuesday, 10/17 at 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's 5 o'clock Pacific for those of you out west. We also record those. Power Hours is a little bit beyond some of the basics, but we use the basics: 12-inch trimmer, the border maker, and the decorative trimmer. We give you all the measurements and directions. So even if you're newer in it, you're welcome to join us and get a little bit more technique with your supplies. Anything else? Questions or anything? Okay, well, we were happy to see your layouts. Please post them for us, and we will catch you all again next time. Megan, do you have anything to add?
I've got nothing. I've been struggling putting stickers on for my title, so I'll have those all to share. There's no cursors, no cursing has been done, but I've been tempted.
Yeah, I don't know that I will. I'm not even ready to title. I wouldn't title anything probably until I get through this whole day.
I was so excited about this title that I've got to get it on this page before I share it. So definitely we'll have it on there so you guys can see.
I don't know. Do you usually pick your titles out before you even do the layouts?
No, it just worked. I mean, as I was doing things, at first I was going to title this whole thing just chores and s'mores, but I was like, oh, well, pools and pines, chores and s'mores. I mean, it's just yeah, that just kind of sums up usually our time when we go up north. So, I just thought I would include that, and it's just a lot of stickers,
That's a
but it's all
lot.
good. It's going down.
Going down and shall have it done. Another question someone put on there is, how do you find time to scrapbook? And I just laughed. I was like, well, you need to schedule a class that you have to show up in front of a public audience, because that seems to be the only way I get any layouts done anymore, is if I'm forced to, because this is not what I would be doing right now if we weren't scheduled in front of all of you. So that's my only tip, is to put it in your calendar as if you have to show up, and tell someone you're going to do it.
For sure. If you have a space at home to be able to crop, it's book yourself in that room or schedule a crop. Go to an event someplace. That can always be really fun to do as well. For me, when I attend a crop as an attendee, that can be a fun time to get a project done. But if you go through my albums, you're like, oh, that was that class, or that was that scrapbook live, or that was that whatever. So it's a lot of the stuff that I do is usually tied into a class. That's why I know for me personally, I really am trying to be better about getting actual photos when I am doing things like classes, because it can be, means I'm getting through my projects as well.
Yeah, and layouts like this is truly how I scrapbook for real. Like when it's just me, it's like we do some fun layouts in our classes, and blog posts you see and Meggan does with her scrapbook lives and all that. I will never scrapbook like that in my real life. I don't have time. I'm like too far behind. Every now and then maybe, a certain blog post catches your eye, or maybe you're just like Meggan, just schedule it and show up to Meggan's class, and you can have a fancy layout once a week, all scrapbook live, and then the rest of the time you can go scrapbook Tessa style and just pull out the basics and make some basic cuts and
Well,
get pages done as you go.
Well, that's definitely, I mean, I will say that I've said it at times before, where sometimes I feel crafty and things off of the blog are perfect because they're a little more crafty. You got to play with your tools and the paper. But sometimes I just want to scrapbook. I just want to get photos on the page. I just want to get a journal titled and done. And it's just sometimes two different mindsets. And sometimes when you're you have a longer period, you go through waves. You just have a couple pages that are a little more intense. And then other times you come in, you're like, I just got to get 3 or 4 done. And that's where these basic layouts are really, really handy. So you don't have to overthink what I need to do to be basic. But you're not getting yourself involved with a lot of materials and such.
Yeah, another tip too is, like, if you find something that works, like, just do it twice. Flip the papers on the other side, rearrange them a little bit. On these pages I showed you guys for Power Hour, there's actually 2 sets in there, and so the pictures I was going to do next, I had actually put in the middle, because when I did that Power Hour layout, I did it twice. And so I had 2 pages done. So this one, I could just do it twice, maybe flip the strips or something like that. And then you don't have to think about your papers again. You don't have to think about find a new idea, just do it again. I guarantee you, people looking through your books aren't like, oh, she just used that layout 2 pages ago. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, I think, sometimes, for how our albums look. And when most people look through these books, they're just looking at the pictures and reading your journaling. And so it's like Meggan said, kind of balancing out that crafty side of it versus what's your purpose really in getting it done. And like anything in life, you have to prioritize. And if you decide this truly is a priority that you want to scrapbook, either maybe it's an outlet for you, maybe it's a stress relief, it's your hobby, it's kind of the self-care side of it, that I'm going to set aside this evening, 2 hours every other weekend, whatever time frame you can find, and do it. Or it's just a priority that, I need to document this heritage. I need to capture these stories. And so it has to go into your calendar. I guarantee you, if I let everything I should do take the place of this, I would have nothing scrapbooked. And in the end, I would look back in 10 years and like, I worked my life away, like I didn't really get anything done that was important to me. And I think that's the struggle we all have, whether you're retired or not. There's so many things to fill our time with. And you really just have to outline, is this a priority to you or not? And find the accountability. And I found with my accountability is scheduling a class, but you could just attend our classes. That could be your accountability, is maybe you can't attend live, but set a time in your week where this is when you're going to watch it live and get it done, and kind of check something off your list. So that's all I got for today. That's my 2 cents about making it happen, which I think is hard for a lot of us. So we hopefully will see you next week in Power Hour. Feel free to post your layouts in the ideas group. The links and the hashtag will be in the email that will come either later today, probably, or in the morning. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks so
See you later.
much.